Here I am.
Thank goodness for that.
Can you do an extra hour?
Well, I just thought I was going to miss my train now.
Ian, sad news for Scotland, having been thrashed by Germany. Even worse news, the Scots pay over 10 times the tax on a pint of beer than do the Germans. Even worse news, it's not just the Scots that pay it, it's the rest of us Brits too. In better news, the German police have told England and Scotland fans at the Euros that they would prefer it if they smoked marijuana instead of got drunk on lager. Every pungent cloud has a silver lining. In other news, Conservative candidates are sending out leaflets with all of the information the electorate needs to decide to vote for them, apart from the small detail of which party they represent.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation, this is LBC. This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Abbott.
He thinks he looks good in a bathing suit, he doesn't.
Well, let's get back to it.
So there's an E. coli outbreak that may be associated with salad leaves. I bet the food manufacturer washed them in British water.
Oh, no.
An Azores high, a spell of warm weather often enjoyed in the Mediterranean countries, including but not limited to Portugal, will arrive across the UK later this month. Listen to that noise. It's like I'm doing this show in a submarine. You hear that? Whoop, whoop. An Azores high, a spell of warm weather often enjoyed in Mediterranean countries like Portugal, is going to arrive across the UK later this month. But they aren't sure about it. They just said there's a small hint of a chance that we might get it. So there seems to be a bigger hint that we won't. An Azores high ridge typically weakens chances of rain, which would come as sweet relief, except there is only a hint of a chance that we will get one, and it's not going to be here until the end of the month, even if it does.
Oh, fabulous.
Worst spring and summer ever. Tonight, rainy and chilly. It's like blooming winter outside. Saturday, after a cold start, sunny spells, but don't get carried away because it'll also be raining. Heavy rain with thunder, lightning. Very, very frightening.
Rock and roll!
It is just too awful. Would you like to hear the long-range forecast for the next 4 weeks?
No.
Now, from this moment to the end of the month, cloudy and rainy in the northwest. Well, yeah. I mean, there's not much point in checking on that, but I will while you wait. Locating, please wait. Oh, look at this. It's if it's not raining at the moment, then it will be tomorrow, quite heavily. This is Glasgow, and it will be raining on Sunday and raining on Monday and raining on Tuesday and what? Not raining on Wednesday? Pfft, rubbish. It will be raining on Thursday and raining next Friday and the following Saturday and on the Sunday and on the Monday and on the Tuesday and pretty much every day for the rest of your lives. Never mind. As for the rest of us, the conclusion of this month will be rainy and windy and rubbish. And for the first 2 weeks in July, well, now it really is getting serious, isn't it? I mean, there's no doubt it. July is supposed to be warm. So fingers crossed, let's charge in and see what we get. All areas can expect to see some spells of drier, sunnier weather with temperatures slightly above average. All areas can expect to see some spells of drier, sunnier weather with temperatures slightly above average. We'll take it. Walter says, when you read your weather forecast for Glasgow tonight, would it be a good idea to review the weather in Munich? After all, 70% of Glaswegians will be in southern Germany. All right, I can do that. I have the technology. Munich, M-U-N-I-C-H. Munich, Germany. Not that great. Wow, blimey, 85 degrees on Tuesday. 85. 85! Can you imagine that?
No.
No. Neither can I. It's going to be considerably warmer than it is here and less rain. I don't know what those people are going to do there. I don't know what Glaswegians are going to do with warm weather and no rain. Do you have anything to wear for no rain and warm weather that's not made of nylon? Pauline says, hope you've seen the vid on X at the G7. Well, X as in formerly known as Twitter. Always will be known as Twitter if I've got anything to do about it. Certainly around where I live. I will not call it X, not now, not ever, never. That logo looks a bit, Nazi-ish. Says, hope you've seen the vid on X at the G7. Biden wanders off, brought back by the French woman. French... Right, just some random French woman. We don't bother learning their names. She's just a woman. Meanwhile, Fishy manoeuvres himself, barging others out of the way to stand next to Biden, embarrassing himself again, making the UK a laughingstock. Yeah, but crucially, not the laughingstock of the world. Because we know where that is.
I don't care about you. I just want your vote. I don't care.
Yeah, I believe him. Fortunately for this country, there is America standing proudly in front of us in the laughing stock of the world stakes. Paul says, I still hear people who say they're voting Conservative. Were these people abducted by aliens 14 years ago, probed for alien science, and recently been returned? Also, what is it with people walking around town in shorts and T-shirts? I still have a winter coat done up to my eyeballs. It's blooming freezing outside. Yeah, me too. I noticed that when I went out. I had a woolen undershirt with a thick woolen hoodie and a thick woolen jacket on top, wearing woolen trousers with woolen socks. And I was cold, but everybody around me was wearing shorts and a T-shirt. Can we please get some agreement as to what the weather is like outside? Because this country is all over the place. We should check with each other before leaving the house. There's a poll just out. Survey says Labour is on 37%, the Conservatives are on 18%, and the Reform Party are on 19%. Yes, they've crossed over. Now, it is just one poll, and it's an outlier. It's an anomaly. Anomaly. Sing. But they have achieved crossover. Can you believe that?
No.
No, me neither. What a crazy, mixed-up, muddled-up world we're living in. Labour are on 37%, the Reform Party are on 19%, and the Conservatives are on 18%. This is despite the fact that...
We've got a few idiots in our party.
If you say so, Nige. The Greenies are on 7%. You go, Greenies. Oh, that was the wrong one. They both begin with G. One's called Goofy and the one's called Groovy. Now, you can see why I would make that mistake.
Groovy.
Yeah. You go, Greenies. In September 2022, with Mr. Blobby as the comedy Dreer leader...
Yeah. Where
the country shifted to support Labour away from the Tories. You can see those lines crossing in a big, giant, low X. Not X as in formerly known as Twitter. I'm talking about an actual X on the graph. The red line goes up, bottom left to top right. The blue line goes down, top right to bottom left. No, wait, top left to bottom... Oh, never mind. Left, right, it's all more or less the same. What difference does it make? It was around September 2022 that happened, right around Partygate, when we found that the people that had been forcing us inside and to distance from each other were playing grabby at drunken hooray parties while laughing at us for our gullibility and probably charging us for their refreshments.
Booze.
You believe that? The 65s and over are, of course, still determined to vote Conservative. 65 plus. They must be absolutely thrilled with the way things have been going for the last 14 years. The 65s and over, determined to vote Conservative, 34% for the Tories, only 20% for Labour. 18 to 50-year-olds, on the other hand, have been in Labour's corner since June of 2021. And the kids, and I'm talking about 18 to 24-year-olds, who have they've never been Tory. In fact, it seems a bit weird that there exists such a thing as a Young Conservatives group. Where do they get their members from? They just nab them as they come out of Eton. It's when you look at Leave and Remain voters that we get a sense of who is voting for who. And this is really stark. I mean, apart from the demographic of the 65-pluses, those people, determined to vote Conservative no matter what happens, then the most obvious stat that just smacks you between the eyes is the difference between Leave and Remain voters. Remain voters are 49% Labour, 18% Lib Dem, 12% Conservative.
What?
Yeah, 49% Labour, 12% Conservative for Remain voters. And the Reform Party does not get a look in, as in 0 votes.
I'm a nutcase.
More or less. Those are the Remain voters. Leave voters, on the other hand, their top favourite party of all time, as in history, is the Reform Party on 35%. Leave voters are more likely to vote for the Reform Party than any other party. 27% say Tory, 20% Labour, 9% for the Liberal Democrats, and the Greens don't get a look in. The groovy Greenies get 0.
Yowza.
Nothing. So Leave voters are still intending to vote for the people that gave them Brexit, which means that they must be thrilled with how it's gone and don't feel as though they've been cheated or manipulated or taken for fools. Or if they do feel that way, they can't bring themselves to admit it. And so we'll continue to make that same decision over and over and over again if it kills them, expecting a different result. Actually, I imagine they're expecting the same result. It's just that they've got it into their heads that if they continue to vote for Brexit and the people that gave us Brexit, that will upset the libs. That's it, isn't it? The Liberals, small L. You know, the enemy. The wokerati. You know, the people who do the wokey-cokey.
Okie-dokie.
Those people. So the Leave voters are still intending to vote for the people that gave them Brexit. I'd like to meet some of those people. I would like to play a game of poker or Snap or anything that involves money. And as a last note of weirdness, the poorer you are, the more likely you are to vote for the Conservative Party. For ABC ones, as in white collar and managerial and the rich, they are Labour over the Tories by 22 percentage points. 22 percentage points is between their vote for, or their support for Labour versus the Tories. Labour first, Tories second, way down the list by 22 points. For the C2DEs, blue collar, poorer, they prefer Labour, but only just by 9 percentage points. They much prefer the Conservatives over the people in this country that have actually got money. Explain that to me. I double dare you. 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nick@lbc.co.uk. If you're on Twitter, it's at LBC. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbott, LBC. It's not time to announce the news, which is what I would normally say after it's. So I'll just go away in order to come back again.
This is LBC. Nick Abbott on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
And remember, darling, I don't work before 10 in the morning and never after 4:30 in the afternoon.
Those are my strict conditions. Let's have a call in Hull. Charles.
Oh, hi, Nick. How are you keeping? Okay.
Yes, I'm great, mate.
Yeah. I was listening to, in the midweek, morning, LBC, as any good person would, perhaps.
Yeah.
And a caller called in, and he said, yeah, Rishi Sunak, imagine you grow up in a nice home where, you know, the parents aren't fighting, and then you go to a good school and you get O-levels, and then you get A-levels, and then you go to Oxford, and then you go from Oxford to become a hedge fund manager, and you make millions in just 8 years or whatever it was, and everything is, and nothing has gone wrong in his life.
No, except for one
Nothing.
thing. Except for one thing, Charles.
Yeah?
He didn't have Sky Television as a youth.
Ah, yes, exactly. And then he said, but we didn't have Sky TV. What? You know, I mean, I grew up in the 60s, 70s.
I think that he was probably trying to think on his feet of some way to extricate him from this line of questioning, and just thought on the spot, what can I say that will make me relatable to relatable to the ordinary person? What didn't I have as a child? Oh yeah, Sky TV. There's not that they couldn't afford it. I bet they just thought that when Sky came out... Yeah, I remember when Sky TV came out, it was one of those groovy young hipster presenters from that Janet Street Porter TV program.
Janet Street Porter with the T.
Yeah, and it was called G7 or L7 or something like that. I can't remember what it was called. Anyway, she said, how do you tell who are the most stupid people in your neighbourhood? Just look for the Sky TV dish. So that was the attitude at the time. So I would lay a pound that Rishi Sunak's family didn't go without Sky TV because they couldn't afford it. They went without Sky TV because they thought it was beneath them.
Yeah. But also, then... Imagine you become a hedge fund manager and you're rich and just successful, and then you join the Conservative and say, I'm rich and successful, just make me an MP.
Yeah.
And they say, he's rich and successful, we'll make an MP for the Conservatives.
Yeah, an MP, not a PM, because there was somebody in front of him.
Absolutely.
Yeah, somebody who was more qualified.
Yeah, and then he said he stabbed. Well, I'm going to beat Boris Johnson and Liz Truss, and I'm going to be PM, and I'm going to get the whole of the country on my on my side.
Yeah, right. Well, you remember when we were deep in the thing, you know, the thing. People used to call him Dishy Rishi. I kid you not.
My God!
I know. It doesn't seem a few years ago. It seems like ancient history. Dishy Rishi is what people used to call him. Anybody calling him that now?
No.
Not now, and not at any point in the future.
It's bizarre, isn't it? And it's called politics, I guess.
Well, it's called us getting to know him, I guess.
Sorry, you got me there. Yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot, Charles. 0345 6060 973. On that subject, Martin says, I'm going to crowdfund to try to get little Rishi Sky TV. Thought that you might want to pledge a couple of quid for a good cause. Well, let me think about that.
No.
Caroline texts, why are we still having March temperatures in June? Has the Gulf Stream reversed? Is that a thing? I don't think it is. I think that the Gulf Stream... Oh, when the Gulf Stream reverses or stop... No, I think when it stops, then we're in big trouble, huge, because we'll get the same weather as other places on the planet on our latitude, which means that we'll be up to our eyeballs in snow for about 6 months of the year. It's only because of the Gulf Stream that we have such a mild climate. But don't say the word climate in connection with this, because that'll upset a lot of people who are gullible enough to believe the propaganda pumped out by the fossil fuel industry. And for some weird reason, they get very, very angry about that. People who say, well, it's not climate change, it's weather. And they just go on and on about it. And repeating ad nauseum the things that they've read on Facebook and, YouTube. And certain pretend news stations. They just repeat the same lines that the fossil fuel industry sends out as PR material. It's not climate change, it's just weather. And the fact that the waters are lapping at the underside of your nose should not concern you. Den texts, with Cameron coming on the airwaves to spout that the public have got a huge opportunity to carry on with this government or risk having Starmer. It seems like Fishy has already declared his intentions by saying that he'll fight to stop the Tories coming third. Glad to see that he's still optimistic, as they could come fourth. He has a plan.
We have a plan, or you just go back to square one.
So that's the choice. Would you like to stick with a plan, or should we go back to square one? Select. And not selecting at all is not an option. No. Hey, kids, wake up. It's later than you think. I think you have 4 days left to register to vote. I don't want to. It's so boring. Oh, I can't be bothered. They're all the same. Nothing ever changes. Stop saying that. 4 days, that's all. And if you absolutely, totally, and cannot be bothered to get out of your dank garret and go down to the polling station and actually select the least bad option, then you can do it by postal voting. And I think to register for a postal vote, you get 1 extra day. Or an extra 12 hours or something like that. I think it's the 19th, isn't it? Check this. Don't take my word for it. Check it up on the internet. Hey, have you seen the internet, kids? All sorts of stuff on there, including the information that you require to actually take part. I cannot stand it when people say that they're not going to vote. What more inducement do you need? Come on. Ricky texts, currently raining in Glasgow with the Tears of Scotland fans. Hey, Ricky, you're so fine, you blow my mind, eh, Ricky? Well, you weren't expecting anything else. I mean, come on, were you? Germany? I mean, you weren't going to beat Germany. We won't beat Germany. And when I say we, I mean England. Even though I'm half Scottish and half Welsh, I do feel English. I was born here. And I only want the best for my country. So for those of you who say, well, if you don't like it, you get out of it, go to another country. No, you go to another country. I'll stay here. Thanks for asking. Simon says, because of the recent Euro elections, in about 2 years, we're going to have the absurd situation that all the people that voted Brexit will want to rejoin a right-wing Europe, and all the people that wanted to remain will want to stay out. Yeah, I don't really get it. I mean, gains by the far right, and I know that people who are on the far right bridle at the very idea that people will call them far right, which I don't really get. I mean, just own it. I mean, if you're going to say far right things, just admit that you're far right. I mean, you know, it's you've already made your decision. Don't pretend otherwise. Why do the people on the far right, it's almost as though they all think the same way. They all vote Brexit. They all want to vote for you-know-who. And they all want out of Europe because, and then there follows an echoing silence, because sovereignty, or, you know, whatever it is that they are currently enjoying. Or trying to kid themselves that they're enjoying. Oh, much better out. Pat says, the new Pet Shop Boys album is outstanding. Yeah, or as I would say... boring! Are you kidding me? Pet Shop Boys, are they still inflicting music on us? What have we done to deserve this? Does the new album sound like every other song that they've ever done? Move over Bouncy, says Pat. No, are you talking about Beyonce? If you are talking about Beyonce, Bouncy is not going to be moved over by the bloomin' Pet Shop Boys. She will crush them under her heel. Still listening to that country album. It's great. Raf says, I'm with you wearing a shearling and a woolly hat. I can't believe it's June. Nothing to do with global warming. And I have dressed particularly warm. I've got woolen under trousers, whatever they're called, long johns, with thick woolen sweatpants, a woolen undershirt, a woolen jumper, and a thick sweatshirt on top. And I don't mind telling you, I'm absolutely boiling in here. It must be 25 degrees centigrade in here. What's that, like 80? And I don't think there's anything I can do to turn it down. I think it's controlled centrally by a robot.
Affirmative.
Which is trying to kill me.
Correct.
Getting a heat stroke in here. Nico says, thanks to your previous public service broadcast and good advice when I chatted with you last week, I have managed to get my UK electoral postal vote as a living overseas citizen. He's both overseas and he's alive, so he gets to vote. He says, thanks and keep up the good fighting against lazy thinking, says Nico. There you are, you see. A convert. There's one. Next. All you need to do is get one, and then the rest will follow.
And one, 2,
and then
6 million.
And then you got 6 million on your side, all ready and raring to go. I cannot believe that people have even contemplated not voting. They've already decided that they're not going to take part. I'm more excited about this election than any in my entire life. I mean, I remember when Blair came in, but I think I was otherwise engaged the previous night, going mad for it. So I didn't really pay it much attention because, but this one, I am going to be fully aware. I might even stay up. Or, better suggestion, the excellent ruse I came up with last week, I might tape it, go to bed early, for the benefit of my face, my beautiful face, and then get up in the morning and not watch any news programs, but start watching the tape. I'll start the tape at about 3 o'clock in the morning when the results come in, and then watch the falling faces of certain individuals. Oh, I just can't wait. How can you not be excited about that prospect? 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nick@lbc.co.uk. If you're on Twitter, it's @LBC. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbott, LBC. It's 10:30. The news headlines with Serena Farrow.
Nick Abbott on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Would you mind telling me what this is all about?
Yes, this is all about a person in Hemel Hempstead called Sharivan. Sharivan.
Hello, good evening, Nick. Good evening. Nick, it's always good to, on a very cold Friday evening, to have a finest bottle of your favorite beverage.
Oh, yes.
A few glasses.
Booze.
And I would like to raise a glass to you, sir.
All right.
The point I wanted to make, did you see the front cover of the Telegraph and Times with a picture of Rishi Sunak? He's meeting the Giorgio Meloni.
Yeah.
When I looked at the picture initially, when I saw the covers, I was in the supermarket and I passed the newspaper stand.
Right.
And I stopped and looked, and my first impression was the Rishi Sunak with his imbecilic look. He reminded me of Frank Spencer, from the 70s.
Yeah, a little bit. That picture looks a little bit like one of those torrid romance novels that people buy at airports.
Yes. Yeah. That's right. He had a silly look on his face.
Well,
and immediately
when doesn't he have a silly look on his face?
It reminded me of Frank Spencer. But, when I look at Giorgio Meloni, she reminds me of everything Italian, very full-bodied woman, fine-looking. And when you see her, you are already revivified and energized. She represents everything.
Is this you revivified and energized?
Yes,
Really?
I am. But when you see many British women, not all, they remind you of a potato.
Right. Well, as long as you don't say anything controversial, Sharivan.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay, well, he slipped up. Just a little accident. Rishi Sunak insisted that he was not being snubbed by other leaders after his first day at the G7 summit. After his first day at the G7 summit ended without any bilateral meetings with his counterparts, and he had an awkward encounter with the previously mentioned Giorgia Meloni, who previously wrote music for Donna Summer.
Rock and roll!
You remember that? Meloni, the Italian Prime Minister, who is one of Sunak's closest international allies, which is embarrassing in and of itself, appeared to ask him sympathetically, "Are you okay?" as they embraced on his arrival in Puglia for the G7 Leaders Summit. Are you okay? Have you had enough of being beaten up? Would you like to take some time off to roll around in your money? Yeah, there's a jet all fueled up and ready to take you to California anytime you like. You can leave all this behind. And so on. I mean, I could waste my life reading that stuff, but I cannot be bothered. Potato? This text says, right, mate, as in M8, and then the number 8. I don't know. Shall I read on? I'll ask an expert. Shall I read on?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you give me any more information on that?
On the phone.
Oh, she's on the phone. You weren't even talking to me. This anonymous text says, right, mate, end of this Brexit talk, pal. It happened, and if you don't like it, you know what to do. I am voting for reform for this reason, to teach the whiny snowflakes that democracy wins every time, and it's people like Nigel Farage that speaks up for the working man. He will take LIBOR in polls. Watch, pal. Says that anonymous text. I'll sum that up for you. And the spelling is abysmal, and it's. I think you played your hand too obviously there. It's so abysmal that I think that is just a joke. I'm assuming that is an intent at humour. Nico says, thanks to your previous public service broadcast and good advice when I chatted with you last week. I have managed to get my UK electoral postal vote as a living overseas citizen. Did I read this already? I think I'm getting deja vu. Hey, kids, wake up. It's later than you think. 4 days to go to register to vote. I don't want to. So boring. Ealing, Mohammed. Too late. South Norwood, Philip.
Oh, good evening, Nick.
Yes, Philip.
I was around when the Cuban Missile Crisis was on.
Oh, yes.
And I've been following that. I gather the Russian ships just went into Cuba this week. And, you know, it was just regarded as they was on a sort of day trip type of thing. I mean, it's sort of been I don't know, were you around when the Cuban Missile Crisis?
No.
No.
Well, I mean, I was born, but I wasn't really paying attention.
No. I mean, we thought it was the end of the world, you know, that Khrushchev was sending these missiles down to Cuba. But this time, I mean, they've gone in there. I mean, I think the Americans have sent an extra ship.
Yeah.
Down to Guantanamo Bay, you know.
Right.
Did you know, Nick, that I've listened to it a couple of times. Do you know you can listen to the radio station in Guantanamo Bay online?
They got a radio station?
Yeah, it's AFN, you know, the Armed Forces Network.
Oh, who's on that then?
They play your kind of music, Nick, you know, the sort of, not heavy rock, but,
rock
you know.
Right.
Yeah, rock and roll. And, of course, I see pictures of it, that they got, all the big takeaways there on the base and everything, you know.
Well, who's the DJ on that radio station? Hey, don't they get them piped over from Merca?
I think they've got, you know, people on there on the base, you see.
Right.
And also, Nick, there's a Cuban newspaper.
Because, hang on a minute, that was what Robin Williams was pretending to be in Good Morning Vietnam. That was AFN, wasn't it? American Forces Network.
This is what this is, Nick. I didn't think you'd be able to get it, so
I thought that they would pipe over just the big names. I'm not sure that who is the big name in American radio.
I don't know.
It used to be Casey Kasem, and
Casey Kasem, yeah,
bland people like that. And they'd give him an hour. They give him an hour on American Forces Network, and So I don't know who's I don't know who's big over there now.
No, I don't. And because there's, as I say, there is a newspaper, Nick, that is published by the Cubans. And do you know what it's called?
The Cigar.
Grandma.
Grandma?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I was telling your producer. Grandma, I found out, was the name of the ship. Not the club, no. Right. No, this newspaper is Grandma because I gather that was the name of the ship.
Think of you.
That was the name of the ship, Nick. That Fidel Castro came into Cuba before they had the takeover at the Bay of Pigs.
Right. Well, it's like a history lesson, isn't it?
It's good, isn't it?
No, it's almost educational.
You might be able to play. You can get a job on part-time job, Nick, on AFN.
On AFN, yeah.
I mean, have you ever seen that wonderful documentary where Chris Tarrant went across Cuba by train
No.
from Havana
No, I have not.
to Guantanamo Bay.
No, I have not.
And he goes as near as you can get to Guantanamo Bay without actually going there.
Right. Well,
And he
I don't need to see it now because you've told me everything about it.
It's worth seeing, Nick. Anyway, it'd be interesting to see what happens with the Russians there, if there's any more problems or...
They'll be having lots of discussions with the Russians, no doubt about that. In Cuba, you say, come in here, dear boy, have a cigar, you're going to go far. You're going to go high, you're never going to die, and I've forgotten the rest of it.
Rock and roll!
Never mind. Words to that effect. Thanks a lot, Philip. Excellent work. William says, as long as there are people prepared to vote Conservative, then I will have a buyer for the magic beans I own. You got magic beans? How much are they? Tricia says, oi, I'm 70 and moving farther left as I get older, Nick. Stop tagging us all as Conservatives. You give me nightmares, says Tricia. Well, not all. I'm just talking about average. The only demographic, age-wise, that is still intent on voting Conservatives are the 65 plus. Everybody under that age, again, see, I'm making it specific. Most people under that age, the vast majority, have absolutely no intention of doing that. Once you get to 65 years old, then you really love the Conservative Party. Or whatever party they're pretending to be now, because their leaflets leave that small detail out, which party it is that they're representing. I can't believe that this is happening. I've got detailed files. One moment, please. Here we go. Information coming in. This is from Sky News. How bad is the Conservative brand? Bad enough for dozens of its own candidates to avoid using it, according to research from Sky's online campaign team and Who Targets Me, whatever that is. Sky looked at the adverts published on Facebook and Instagram by 521 Labour and Conservative candidates from the 1st of May to the 12th of June. Of these, 376 adverts contained official branding, that is logos and colours, 104 had some sort of partial branding, and 41 had no branding at all. And the vast majority of those with no branding, 38 out of 41, were Conservative.
This government...
Exactly. Of the 80 Conservative candidates who had partial branding, 73% only mentioned the party in the funding disclosure, the small print on the back, where they are legally obliged to do so, for fear of punishment, which they'll never get. Of the 19 Labour candidates, everyone mentioned their party in the written text above the advert, as well as in the funding declaration. Most Labour candidates' adverts are plastered in party branding, but for a number of Conservatives, it's hard to tell at a glance that they are representing the Conservative Party. I mean, some of them colour their leaflets that they've stuck through your door in green. Groovy green. At first glance, and at second and third and fourth glance, it looks like you're holding a leaflet from the Groovy Greenies. And then you realise you're holding a leaflet from the Conservative Party. Johnny Mercer completely avoids Conservative branding in his election leaflets, apparently. That's gorgeous Johnny Mercer. Never passed a mirror he didn't fancy. Johnny Mercer completely avoids Conservative branding in his election leaflets. The reverse page mentions the party in small text and in brackets as part of the funding disclosure, where candidates are legally obliged to. Not only in small text, but he put it in brackets. I don't know, why don't you just put a black line through it? Like it's been redacted. Andrea Jenkins, first elected as Conservative MP in 2015 and a former minister, does at least paint her leaflet in true blue. But, and it's a huge but, the first picture is of her posing with the leader of another party entirely. Nigel for bloomin' Raj.
Nigel Farage is not fit and proper to be in government.
How weird is that? A Tory campaigning for the general election sends out a leaflet with her posing with the leader of a competing party. Is this real life or am I hallucinating? Tory Treasury Minister Bim Afalami said, I am not going to comment on Andrea or anyone else. It's up to her how she wants to appeal to her electorate. Well, apparently she wants to appeal to Tory voters by appealing to voters who don't want to vote Tory. It is, however, says Sky, worth stressing that the majority of Conservative candidates are using party branding. But a significant number think that they're better off without it, or better off with Nigel Farage, says Sky News. Any thoughts, Nige?
We are thick, we are stupid.
If you say so. 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nick@lbc.co.uk. If you're on Twitter, it's @LBC. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbott, LBC.
Nick Abbott on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Oh, hello.
There was a headline in the Super Story Mail today that had me honking with laughter. Now, see if this does not sound to you like a joke. This is the headline, which and this put me in mind of it.
Oh, hello.
Sneering kids, drugs, knife fights, and no more golf or Mandarin. Not mandarins, not the fruit, the language. No more golf or Mandarin. Why, as a private schoolboy, I'm terrified of being forced to attend a Sink state school. I mean, doesn't that sound like a joke? And so they have this supposed 14-year-old child write this article in the Mail about how awful it would be to be taken out of private education because of the evil Labour Party wanting to take away their charitable status. It's, I mean, every detail of it is just comical. So I might go over that in full detail later on. Let's see how time allows. West Devon, hello, Rose.
Oh, hello, Nick.
Yes, Rose.
You could shed a jumper, you know, in there.
I just have, yeah, much better.
Good.
Yeah. Unfortunately, my legs are, it feels like they're on fire. They're so warm.
God, you are silly putting all those clothes
Well, it was cold when I left the house.
Oh.
But I didn't think through it's going to be boiling hot when I get into the studio.
Well, actually, two things, really, if possible. About the indifference to voting. I've got something to say, but I've also thought a bit about this 12 billion that Tories want to cut yet again. But what I was thinking, Nick, was you just keep hearing this. Well, I'm so disillusioned about politicians over the last few years, 14 years of this. They're all the same. I've given up on politicians. Well, you might as well just say we've had politicians for 14 years.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's like
yes.
If you went, I tried to think of an analogy, and I thought if you go to a concert or with either bands or an orchestra, say let's do both of them, and say the orchestra maybe plays every piece abysmally. A French horn hits a duff note, you know, at a crucial moment, or several bands come on, and each one more atrocious than the last, and you come out of either of these concerts saying musicians wouldn't give them the time of day.
No, exactly. They're all the same. Yeah.
Yes, don't know one end of an instrument for the other. I've had it with them. I mean, what's the difference?
It's just lazy talk. It's lazy learned talk. Worse. I mean, if it was just lazy, that's one thing. But it's learned behaviour. They just repeat the same lines that they have learned off the internet. They're being subject to a tsunami of misinformation, much of which is trying to stop them voting. It's not an accident, it's deliberate. If you have expressed an opinion that is the opposite of whichever party is trying to persuade you to act in their interests, then they will send you an advert that makes you feel less like voting. They will tell you that they're all the same. And this is why they keep repeating that stuff.
I didn't realise this.
It's propaganda, Rose.
I didn't realise that's what was being going on.
A neat trick that they pulled from the Republican Party in the United States of America.
The American dream is dead.
So rather than trying to make them vote Tory, they've given up on that, and they're trying to make them not vote at all.
Not vote at all. Bingo.
You see, wouldn't it be better just not to go on the internet? I mean,
yes.
I mean, I'm no example of anything. I'm a fool, but all I listen to, in just media-wise, is literally your station and Radio 3. And yet, I can come up with conclusions that don't seem totally balmy.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, for instance...
Are you going to give us an instance? Hang on a minute. Wait a minute. Are you going to give us an instance of a non-balmy opinion?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, what is this obsession with 12 billion? Because after 2010, they took 12 billion, or 12 and a half, I'm not sure, from welfare. I may have misremembered this, but I don't think so. At which point we started to have many food banks, at which point I knew it was the start of stripping everything away until we got the skeleton we've now got. Because, Nick, the insouciance that went with it, because, you see, now isn't that an interesting word? I haven't looked it up, because it seems to me it's a bit different from indifference. Indifference is just not even looking.
Yeah, it's not being bothered. Yeah, no, insouciance. Yeah, it's. I would guess that it is a casual acceptance of the prevailing conditions. I'm going to look it up. Which
almost sort of contentment with it. It's a bit more awful than indifference, but I may be wrong about it.
Now, I could look it up, but of course there comes the task of actually spelling it.
Oh, no.
I'm going to go with what I've got written down here. Insouciance, casual lack of concern, indifference, an impression of boyish insouciance is an example. And I spelled it right. Can you believe that?
No.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, it's not very much different, though, is the boyishness. I just feel it suggests that they're actually happy with it.
Yeah.
So my point would be that if they had then turned around and said, wow, people are begging for food, we've made a mistake, and they started to go into reverse, change things, that would have been one thing. They didn't do that. They were insouciant, if that's such a word, about this situation, and everyone that got worse and worse, the foul state of affairs they created, they continued to be insouciant and indifferent about it. So, I mean, it was obvious from way back what they were about. And then, just before 2015, they trumpeted $12.5 billion to take off welfare. And now they're doing this 12. Why this 12? But people still voted them in. Oh, yes, let's have another $12.5 billion.
Well, 12 is an attractive number. It looks good written down, and it sounds good to say it out loud, whereas 10 just doesn't. There's nothing very attractive or poetic about the word 10. 12, on the other hand, you can really get your lips around 12, can't you, Rose?
You're absolutely right. I think that's exactly it.
Yeah.
Yes, and 11's hopeless. 13 is awful. Yeah,
awful, terrible. Yeah, 12. I mean, there's I don't know. There's an attractiveness about 12, both in writing it and seeing it and saying it and hearing it.
So, yes, and so we're now having it 3 times since 2010, taken off poor people.
Well, what's extraordinary to me is that we're still going through austerity. I mean, they pretend that that's in our rearview mirror, but it's not. I mean, the consequences of it is we're still going to be living with it for decades. But the intention was, or the stated intention, was to reduce the debt level of the nation by the government spending less. And in that time, the debt level's gone up by about 300%. And we don't appear to have got anything for it, but we certainly know what we're missing.
Yes. We just don't have a country, almost. It's like the aim was to have a failed state.
Now, wait a minute. Because that's straying into their territory. Let's get our country back.
Oh, God, yes, I put that back in, didn't I?
Uh-oh.
We don't have a state.
Yeah.
We have no state, and I mean, they professed at the outset that they were going to shrink the state. The state is an awfully bad thing, isn't it? We mustn't have anything state-funded. We mustn't have Sure Start or anything good for people.
Apart from the weapons industry and the fossil fuel industry and, all those industries that need propping up by the state that receive more in subsidies than they pay in taxes, that's just fine. Socialism for multinational corporations, they're fully on board with that. But helping individual people... not so much. You should pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. Although, how can you actually do that, though? How can you pull yourself up with your own bobootstraps? What, with gravity and all?
Well, that's the whole point, isn't it? It's not possible, but we're always told it is. And, I think of my grandmother. She just said, because she brought up, I won't go into it now, obviously I won't have time, but 4 kids with her own wage. They all have to leave.
I bet she didn't have Sky TV, too. The misery. The horror.
it hadn't been invented.
Even worse. Rose, got to go, but thanks for that. 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nick@lbc.co.uk. If you're on Twitter, it's @LBC. Insouciant. INSOOSHANT. I think you'll find that's right.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
This is absolute tosh.
0345 6060 973. A very angry person called Leslie texts the following. I am over 60 years old. I am Labour and Remain. Stop saying that. It's ageism. P.S. Love your show. Says Leslie. Appreciate it, Leslie.
Thank you.
Again, not everybody over the age of 60 is determined to vote Conservative. It's just that more of them are than would consider voting Labour. And that's the only age demographic that is in that camp. Only when you get to, and it's not even 60, it's 65, I think. Only when you get to 65 years old are more people considering or determined to vote Conservative than Labour. All other age groups are Labour first, and the younger you get, the more they love them, LUV. Sue texts, I love your show, but I am 75 and I've never voted Conservative in my life, nor did I vote for Brexit. Please don't tar us all with the same brush, it hurts, says Sue. Hey, Sue.
Stop whining.
0345 6060 973. Merthyr Tydfil, Jeff.
Well, how are you doing, Nick?
I am great, mate.
Good.
You sound depressed.
Well, not really. When I first saw that woman Jenkins issuing a leaflet,
yes,
with a picture of herself and Nigel Farage,
yeah,
I genuinely thought it was a parody thing. I thought, this isn't true. You know, somebody's cooked it up, you know, for Twitter and whatever. And I thought, it can't be right.
No.
It is right.
Amazing.
I can't believe it.
No, I can't believe it.
Anyway, you've had a little inkling, as you know, as your Welsh correspondent down here.
Mm-hmm.
I put you in the picture long before it happens, and this business with our First Minister, Vaughan Gethin. He's generally sort of nice guy, like, you know, and all the rest of it. But he's taken £200,000 off a guy that was convicted of various things, and the whole thing smells, right? It's an embarrassment for the Labour Party. We were in the middle of a general election. The honourable thing for him to do is just say, "I'll call it a day and go," you know. But no, they're determined to fight on, to keep him in, and it's causing immense problems down this neck of the woods. And it's so silly, you know. It's just not on, and it's everybody's making hay on it, you know, and it's just a bad smell. But anyway, the main thing that happened, perhaps you don't know up your neck of the woods, but the Senate is split 30-30, 30 Labour, and the other 30 opposition played Conservative, one Liberal, and they. He would have won the vote of no confidence, but he'd sacked one woman, Livin, who she supposedly had leaked the idea that he was getting rid of WhatsApp messaging during the COVID pandemic. So he sacked her. And there's a guy that spoke against him taking the 200,000, a guy called Lee Waters.
Right, I mean...
I know.
I'm sure that this is very interesting to some people, but it's,
not
you know, not really. No, I'm afraid not.
But they went sick, Nick. They went sick. right? They still off sick.
Yes, right.
They didn't have enough courage to come in and vote against him. And so he lost the vote because they went sick. It's pathetic. You know what I mean?
Wales in battle. First Minister Vaughan Gething says he wants a new start after losing a vote of no confidence. He was facing questions from the Senate members for the first time since he lost the vote in his leadership last week. The motion was non-binding, called by the opposition after a controversial £200,000 donation to Gething's leadership campaign. He said he took both the debate and the vote very seriously. And whenever they say that they've been very clear that, or that they take something very seriously, then I stop listening.
It's just a stupid story, honestly. It
well,
really
let's
is.
just add it to the giant pile of stupid stories that started to appear when you-know-who hoved in the view.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
This country has been a whole pile of stupid stories ever since he was elected into office.
Yeah, but the thing is, nobody's... Every time I've turned in the television on, every time I've turned in the radio on, all I'm getting is Nigel Farage.
Yeah, he's everywhere.
You can't get
He's
rid of
like the Trump phenomenon in America. Even if a TV station represents everything that is against what Trump believes in and what he does, even if they hate him like poison, they still can't stop putting him on their channels because that's box office. It's like a car crash. You might not want to look at it, but you can't stop yourself.
But the whole point is, he hasn't even got... Well, hang on. He has got one MP, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Leander Tal.
Yeah, a defective.
Yeah. I mean, the coverage is just phenomenal.
It is, yes. The free advertising that both Trump and Farage get is just through the roof. Yeah. But, you know, he can comfort himself with all of that money that's been pouring into his company. I'm sure he's never been so happy.
Do you know when you say to him, hey, UK has lost 40 billion every year through Brexit.
Right.
He just turns around and says, yeah, but the tax returns are good.
Yeah, he just waves his hand and pretends it's not happened. Or Brexit has nothing to do with him, not in its current form, because this isn't Brexit as envisaged by Uncle Nige. This is some mutated form of Brexit that has been foisted upon us by politicians who were, to a man, Brexiters. They're all the Brexiters. I mean, particularly this guy.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
Who was in charge for most of the time since Brexit, and still an absolute copper-bottomed, ocean-going catastrophe. Never mind, eh? Got to go, Jeff. Thanks for that. 0345 6060 973. Yeah, he does. He's asked about it frequently, and he just sort of waves it away as though it's only the woke that would ask him, or would be so presumptuous as to ask him about the Brexit that he fashioned for us. How's Brexit going, Nige?
Brexit's going great.
Glad to hear it. Nikki texts, I was going to vote for the Labour Party, but no more, because I don't like what they're saying in their manifesto about I'm the single market, never entering it again. I'm done about... I think I'm is probably not supposed to be there. Shall I start again?
No.
I was going to vote for the Labour Party, but no more, because I don't like what they're saying in their manifesto about the single market, never entering it again. I'm done with Labour, so I'm voting Liberal Democrat, says Nikki, who managed to write that entire screed without the benefit of punctuation. Hey, Nikki, would you like to buy a comma? Darryl says, it's excellent news that only poor people are voting Conservative. Since no one is voting Tory, we must all be fabulously wealthy. Happy days. Well, this country has never been so happy. HAPPY. That's us. Let's have a call in Letchworth. Martin.
Hi, Nick. I think it'll be a bit of a shame if Labour get in, particularly with their plans for private schools. You know, with this VAT policy that you mentioned earlier, it's not going to lead to better outcomes for the education sector. What it's going to lead to,
I think it probably will.
How would it lead to better outcomes?
Because politicians who, at the moment, can afford to send their children to private school might have to suffer the indignity of sending them to state schools, and so will improve those state schools.
Well, I mean, research suggests that about 20% of students might be leaving private schools. No one really knows what the number is.
Research suggests? Whose research?
This is research from The Independent. So I don't know if you know Jane Dalton. She's a journalist.
I don't. No. But other research says other things. But OK, let's land on 20%.
Yeah, I mean, if 20% leave, then that's a considerable blow to, a child's education. Suddenly it's going to be very disrupted midway through.
No, you didn't hear what I said before. What I said was that if state schools, if politicians and those who are wealthy and influential are forced to send their children to state schools, then those state schools will magically be fully funded.
Well, the research actually suggests that private school
Whose research is this?
So this is Professor Walshman at the University of Munich who conducted research on...
He does fantastic work.
There is also research from Pauline Rose and Benjamin Alcott.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. Well,
so
I'm up to my eyeballs with research, none of which amounts to a hill of beans because they're just guessing.
Well, do you have any research to show that it will improve standards?
Only by understanding what human beings are like. Human beings are greedy, and if those who have the money to send their kids to private school, who would be inconvenienced to such an extent that an extra 20% would put them off, then they will determine that the schools that their children are sent to are funded better, and that classes are smaller, and that the kind of things that are available to the children are improved.
But this is all speculation, though. This can't actually be proven.
No, it's called greed, Martin.
Well, I mean, you can say these abstract terms like greed and want and desire, but we have no idea whether this is actually going to make the school system better. And the research that I've seen shows that actually private school enrolment leads to better standards, not worse standards.
Yeah, for private school children, it does. Of course, it does. That's like saying if you go to school in a Rolls Royce, then you will have a better journey than if you go to school on a bus. Well, of course you blooming well will.
Well, actually, the University of Munich research showed that actually the overall standards improved. It wasn't just the private school.
Well, I don't believe the University of Munich on that score, Martin, and neither do I believe you.
Well, I think overall it's better that people are allowed to make their own decisions.
Well, make their own decisions. Yeah, I quite agree with you. Yes. What I don't agree with you about, and this is the unstated point of your call, is that poor people who can't afford to send their children to private schools should subsidise the wealthy who can afford to.
Well, a subsidy is where the government provides money to an individual.
Exactly, and that's precisely what's happening. By dint of those private schools being charities and tax exempt.
So should we just abolish them altogether rather than just charging them VAT?
Why go to the extreme in order to try to prove your point, Martin? Nobody's suggesting that we abolish them altogether. It's not necessary to do a Finland, which, by the way, has a better education system than we do. It's fairer and they have better results than we do. They don't have private schools, except for a handful that are religious schools, and they are mostly funded by the state. But overall, the vast majority of children in Finland go to state schools. And guess where on the World Happiness Index Finland lies compared to us?
I think they may be described as happier, but on the PISA rankings, the East Asian countries...
Oh, well, OK, so we'll just run our lives on what the PISA rankings are, as opposed to whether we're happy or not. I think cherry-picking information and statistics is what you're about, Martin, and I think I've given you a full report, all that is necessary for you to go away and contemplate the error of your ways. Appreciate it. It's painful. There was this big, long article in the Mail, supposedly written by a 14-year-old. Until a few days ago, I hadn't considered that life in a state comprehensive would be anything other than a bigger version of what I'm used to at my private school. Yet now, looking down the barrel of larger class sizes, minimal sporting facilities and the possible threat of violence against me from other pupils, I'm filled with anxiety. When Mum and Dad first told me a few months ago that due to Dad's financier job, we were moving from the Peak District to Kent, they'd warned me that, although they have spent the last decade carefully saving and making sacrifices, no Sky TV... making sacrifices in order to give me the best possible education they could with ever-rising fees and the competition for school places, they might not be able to guarantee me a place at another private school. And then there's a picture under which is written, his parents explained that with the likelihood of a newly elected Labour government imposing VAT on school fees, they can't afford to risk enrolling him in another private school. Picture posed by models, very sad models, who look like they have all the weight of the world's troubles on their little shoulders.
Oh, no.
He says, at the time I thought, oh, well, I'll just transfer to a nice secondary school in a nice area. Until now, me and my brother, he's 16, I'm 14, have always attended private school. I'm told the annual fees amount to more than £30,000 a year for both of us. And as a family, we've had to do without things. Like foreign holidays or a large home in order to manage this. Oh. I mean, I wonder if he did without Sky, because, there's a down-to-earth man of the people who had to do without it when he was growing up, or so he likes to tell us. Anybody believing, by the way, that a doctor and a pharmacist couldn't afford Sky TV when Fishy were a lad?
No.
No, I didn't think so, no. This supposed 14-year-old says, but this week they sat me down again ahead of the move. My parents explained that with the likelihood of a new elected Labour government imposing VAT on school fees, they can't afford to risk enrolling me in another private school. And to make matters worse than that, they warn me that the best state schools are so oversubscribed and places so fiercely contested, I may not end up in a school environment with kids who enjoy school and who want to pass their exams like me. Well, welcome to our world. The country that can't afford to send not one but two kids to private school because their wages wouldn't cover the cost of the uniforms and the sports kit and the packed lunch. Never mind about the 30 grand a year. He says, Mum, who has a job in marketing, explains some of the harsh realities of the state system, drawing on the experiences of her friends and children who are currently at state schools. That's when I started to panic. It's beginning to dawn on me that I could be sitting next to pupils who don't care about doing well, who sneer when I put my hand up to ask or answer questions, and, worst case scenario, may even carry a knife or drugs in their school blazers. He says, I Googled this the other day, and school violence is statistically more likely to occur in a state than a private setting, according to a 2020 study by the University of York. It says a 14-year-old. Yeah, he certainly does write like a 14-year-old, doesn't he?
No.
Worst case scenario, they may even carry a knife or drugs in their school blazers. Well, it's worse than that. Some of them might turn up to school without a blazer. And it goes on. And I might. Depending. 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nick@lbc.co.uk. If you're on Twitter, it's @LBC. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbott, LBC.
This is LBC. Nick Abbott on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
What's he got to be depressed about?
Oh, blimey, where do I even begin? Fortunately, amusement is just around the corner in Harrow. A person called Jonathan. Harrow?
Yeah, good evening, Nick.
Yes, Jonathan.
I wanted to touch on three things. Number one, how I resolved my diarrhea. Number two, Rishi Sunak, and then Nigel Farage.
Right. Well, I'm glad that you didn't make number one, number two.
Hello? Yeah. So the thing with my diarrhea is that I realise that it's the tap water.
Tap water, yeah, you don't want to get any of that on your shoes.
But it's becoming, I'm talking about drinking it, and it's become like India now because I have, I've now moved to bottled water. I actually just came home a couple of hours back with 6 bottles. I'm going to pick it up on the, Aquapura, 6 bottles of water. Mm-hmm. And the only thing I now use tap water to do is, actually, as I was listening to the Welsh man, I realized that, like in India, I got panicked because I washed the salad with tap water.
Oh, no, you don't want to do that. Salad with tap water? Yeah, ditch the salad.
No, because in India, I never thought I would be speaking to you like this in the UK, because in India you can't wash the salad with tap water.
With tap water, no. And don't ask for ice cubes in your drink.
But it's the same in the UK now.
Yeah, I know.
Because
Unbelievable.
there's poo-poo in it.
There's poo-poo in your O2, yeah.
Because in the morning, I told you, I put lots of water in my eyes.
In your eyes?
Yeah, to feel refreshed, because the tap water is lovely and cold.
Yeah, and how's that going?
Well, no, because today, I realised I've got little scabby bit near my eyelid,
Near
so
your
I think
eyes,
that might be
yeah.
the water.
Well, you're lucky to be able to see across the room.
No, so this morning I put some, can I say the bottled Evian, bottled water
Well,
in my eyes.
as long as you don't mention any brand names. Evian, you say? Mm-hmm.
No, but listen, the thing is, I used half a bottle of water, and it wasn't cold. So all day I felt a bit foggy, and I don't have that usual zing, you know? That's true.
You're zingless.
Yeah, and so that's when I went to the corner shop to buy some bottled water. This is my Rishi Sunak point. I was walking along, and now I don't want to make a racial, controversial point.
But?
No, but listen, the chap who served me in the Indian corner shop, he was an Indian man like me. Mm-hmm. And as I was walking along, there were lots of single Indian men like, I told you, I'm balding and obese.
Yes.
Yeah.
You paint a beautiful picture. Carry on.
Single Indian men, the ones doing the deliveries also on the little bicycles.
Yeah.
And there was a very handsome English boy with two girlfriends. I think they were both women, and the one was a... No,
it is difficult to tell these days, yeah. Your mum doesn't know whether you're a girl or a boy, yeah.
You can't talk about it, and they put you in jail. But, one was a good-looking mixer, the woman, and the other one, she was blonde. I think she was a woman, and they were joking about saying, you need two new girlfriends tonight. But anyway, he was an Englishman, and I'm going to say something that nobody talk about. Rishi Sunak, like me and all of the other single Indian men who are walking past this handsome English chap with two wives, in this country, if you're an Indian man like Rishi Sunak, you are always in second place.
Rishi Sunak in second place? Well, who's he in a race with? Elon Musk?
No, because this country, I don't want to be sort of combative this late in the night, but this country, people have a instant reaction when they see an Indian boy like me or Rishi.
They do?
It's like a hostility. That's why Boris Johnson, even though he was completely a dilettante, people liked him because he was a blonde white man.
Yeah, they liked his act. Yes, I'm not sure that they were physically attracted to him, if that's what you're saying.
No, but it is the white privilege because Rishi Sunak is trying to paint himself like some hard-done boy, but he was very rich. Mm-hmm. If you have ever seen Eminem's album cover, tell your receptionist to do some research.
Which one?
The Eminem album cover had a picture of Eminem's house when he almost grew up in a shed.
Oh, that, yes.
Like a burnt shed. That is a tale of rags to riches that we like. But with Rishi Sunak, white privilege plus wealth.
Rich, it's a tale of rich to richer, for Rishi.
I'll get so emotional thinking about the Eminem, but listen, that's true. It's literally a shed, and now he lives in Manson, isn't it?
Yeah.
But white privilege means that Eminem, he don't talk to his mommy, and yet he is lauded in society. But Meghan Markle, he don't talk to her daddy, and they paint her as the witch.
Yes, that's right. They certainly do, yes.
Can I make a quick last point about Faraz?
Yes, please.
Because I told you, I voted for Brexit, not because I'm a racist, but I was living next to a shouting Romanian man at the time. Hello?
I'm sorry. My mind was on other things. You were what now?
I was living at the time next to a very shouty Romanian man and his father who would start shouting every morning, and not that I'm a racist.
Yes, shouting every morning, yes.
But now I wake up in the mornings with Nick Ferrari and James O'Brien's show next to me. Mm-hmm. And I really think we're living in a time warp because, look, in 2019, Nigel Farage had custard thrown on him, and it happened the same this year.
Yes. I'm not sure the flavour was the same, but it may well have been. I'll look into that.
In 2019, we had Donald Trump everywhere. I just wish he would shut up and go away. He makes me sick.
There's no chance of that anytime soon. Him shutting up and going away. No, I don't think so.
And then in 2019, or a few years before, James O'Brien did an infamous interview with Nigel Farage.
He did.
I listened to the Nick Ferrari interview, and effectively, Nigel Farage is still singing the same hymn sheet because he is asked by all of these people. He's on every channel, and people essentially say to him, Nigel, are you a racist? He says, I'm not a racist. No. And they say, but a lot of your followers are racist. And he says, they're not really racist. And people say, is Reform UK racist? And he says, maybe they're a racist. It's the same thing. I think he's racist. It's the same thing, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. But I want you to leave that with me, and I'll look it up.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. Have a good evening.
Thanks a lot, Jonathan. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You better lose yourself in the music. The moment you own it, you better never let it go. Oh, he's gone. Darryl says, it's excellent news that only poor people are voting Tory. Since no one is voting Tory, we must all be fabulously wealthy, happy days. I've read that one already. But if at first you don't succeed, just keep reading the same thing over and over again. Mike says, I think saying Rishi had it easy when he was young is a bit judgmental, actually. I very much think he is too rich and we need to massively reallocate wealth, etc. But we can't say for sure he had it easy. Who knows? Maybe he was on edge or under pressure to succeed and felt unhappy when he was young, says Mike. Mike, I'll take that line from Fraser. Again. You know, Oxford University has an electron microscope which is used to see the smallest molecules that are known to man. And even with that instrument, you could not find my interest in Rishi Sunak's pain. 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nick@lbc.co.uk. If you're on Twitter, it's @LBC. The time is 11:30. The news headlines here with Serena Farrow.
Nick Abbot on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Are you trying to be funny? Because I'm all out of laughs.
No, there's nothing funny about it. Sasha texts, he's no dishy Rishi now. He never was. People just used to say that because there was the help out to eat out thing. So, you know, food comes on a dish. So they made that connection. Plus, he was doling out the KASH. But people should just take a step back and think about that for a moment, because it wasn't his money he was giving out. Not a single solitary penny of his money. It was our money that he was doling out. And he sprayed it around the place, and a couple of drops landed on us. Dishy Rishi. Dave's text. I have a formal complaint to make. I can no longer say the word priority thanks to your show. I'm actually flinching mid-meeting when I catch myself saying it. Not saying priority is his number one priority.
Under my leadership, the government's priorities are your priorities.
Wrong way round.
The people's priorities.
It's the country's number one priority. It's my number one priority up and down the country, and that will be our focus.
My absolute number one priority. My number one priority is to protect this government.
Well, what I want to reassure people is that this will be my number one priority. People should be absolutely reassured that this is a top priority for me. I'm gripping it.
He is gripping it.
I'm gripping it.
He is gripping it right now. That is double confirmation. Juliet says, our climate is just not the same anymore. I feel so sorry for my children that they won't get to enjoy the perfect British weather of old. All we have now are extremes, says Juliet. Not really. We just have... It's just going to be wetter here. That's all. I mean, unless the ocean gyre does actually come to a halt, and in that case, we're totally screwed. Because you know what it's like when we get a tiny... icing sugar dusting of snow in this country. The entire land falls flat in its face. Nothing works. So can you imagine if we regularly, of a winter, got 12 feet of snow, as they do in Canada and upstate New York and places like that, which are on our latitude? The only reason we don't get that is the Atlantic gyre, or whatever it's called. Some sea current. And if it stops, we're in big trouble, huge. I mean, it will put everything that we're suffering from into sharp relief. It will put everything into perspective. I mean, nothing short of a global thermonuclear war will affect us like that will. Let's have a call now in Albury. Hello, Ranjit.
Hi, Nick. You're on, mate.
Yes, good, thanks.
Yeah, I don't know. You've covered so many subjects now, I don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
Let's start with, Rishi Sunak, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't sympathise with him at all. I'm just exactly like you, right? But there's a little bit of light I can shed on it. You know, like today, how we tell our children, keep away from social media, keep away from your phone, yeah?
Do we?
That's what a lot of people do. There's been a lot of subjects.
Well, the kids aren't hearing it.
Well, they're not listening, are they?
No.
They're not listening.
Because they've got their faces in their phones, not paying the blindest bit of attention.
Yeah, I mean, he was born in 1980 or something like that, wasn't he? So he's about 40-something, right? The thing was, a lot of Asian parents, right, they wanted their children to succeed, right? So they used to not let them watch TV, so Sky. That was the reason he probably never had Sky. It wasn't because he couldn't afford it.
No, I don't believe that. I don't believe it was. They probably thought that it was beneath them. Only the common people had Sky TV. Betcha.
Yeah, so in order for him to be successful, right, he had to avoid distraction, and Sky TV was probably one of them. So he had to say something in that interview. You know, he was like, a rabbit's eyes in front of the headlights
in exactly
of
the same way as Boris Johnson when he was asked what he does for his amusement. He couldn't think of a single solitary thing. He didn't want to say, well, I chase money and girls, because that's not really the answer that was required. So he said, I make buses out of wine crates.
Yeah.
Has anybody ever seen one?
No. And then, like when he asked that on the homeless guy, he says, are you in business,
yes.
right? So what happens is, if you send your child to football training, right, and you make them train, and if they don't make the England captain, that they're a failure. That's how he's been brought up, right?
Well, you don't know that.
No, I can tell you, because there's loads of people who are manufacturing.
Oh, well, you should have said you can tell me. Well, you should have said.
No, look at Smug, right? What does Smug know about life? He knows nothing about life, does he? When he talks, right, all he's been is to these posh schools, yeah? And what is written in a textbook, that's all they know. So if I was to give you a manual on how to drive a car, you've never driven a car in your life before, and you read that book 10 times inside out, and I gave you the car keys, are you going to be able to drive that car?
Absolutely. Where do you want to go?
Yeah. That's what I mean. These kind of people are manufactured people for specific jobs. That's what I'm trying to say. They're not human. They're just like robots.
Yeah.
Right?
I'd agree with that. They're robots who just make money by moving numbers around on a screen. They don't actually create any wealth. They're not wealth creators. They just take a slice from a lot of people and pile it all up in one place for themselves. That's what those hedge funds do.
Yeah, not just the money side of it. There's people in other fields, they're only good at that one specific thing, right? So Rishi Sunak, he's not a politician. All he is, yes, he can bet against the government or bet against his country, right? Now he's, like one of his colleagues, right, or someone, they bet that the election was going to be on July the 4th. That's insider trading, isn't it? Right?
But we don't know one way or the other. Plus, it was only 100 quid, so what difference did it make?
Yeah,
God, people are obsessing about that like it's world news.
No. Yeah, but they need something to distract people. It's like now, right, Rishi Sunak's gone to the G8 summit, right?
7.
Trying to talk to all these guys that he ignored last week.
Yeah? That's right. Nobody wants to know. Why would they waste their time talking to him?
Yeah, they're saying, come on, mate, what happened to you last week, right? And there's one more thing that really is really making me angry.
And
right?
finally, yes.
Nigel Farage, yeah, he's jumping up and down. He wants to be on the BBC. He wants to be everywhere. In the local elections, out of nearly 2,600 odd seats, he got 2 councillors and George Galloway got 4, right? So why ain't? I mean, I don't like either of them. Yeah, why ain't George Galloway got a platform anywhere then?
Well, yes, I mean,
because his mouth, the bigger your mouth is, the more publicity you get.
right.
And what Farage is doing, I tell you what, it's frightening, to be honest with you.
Well, don't be frightened, Ranjit.
I'm too long in the tooth to be frightened.
Right.
But the way he's dividing the country now. Right, and then people start saying, "Oh, well, Rishi Sunak stabbed Boris Johnson." Hang on, they were partying, they got found guilty, right? So we encourage whistleblowing, right?
No, we don't.
So,
this country does not encourage whistleblowing. People who whistle blow, regardless of what new extra law they're going to put in place, people who blow the whistle on those above them in an institution will get fired, will get prevented from progressing within that organisation. That organisation and the people who are running it will take their vengeance out upon them.
Can I just make one last point on the water, yeah?
Yes.
I've found a way we can buy the water back, right? What we do, each time they pollute us, yeah, we give them a massive fine, and when they've paid that fine, we put it away in a piggy bank, yeah, until we've got enough and we've bankrupted them and use that money to buy them back.
Right.
That's the only way around it.
All right, excellent idea, Ranjit. Thanks a lot, mate. 0345 6060 973. If we were going to do that, we should have done that when they privatised the water in the first place. This is the only country on earth that has ever sold off all of its water. The only one in the world. Us. We're also the only country in the world that has made it more difficult to trade with our closest neighbours. Just us. The only one in history, ever. What a way to run a country, eh?
Dreadful.
0345 6060 973. Let's have a call in Bath. John.
Hello, Nick.
Yes, John.
I'll try to keep it short because obviously I want to give priority.
It's the country's number one priority.
But there's two things. First of all, I'll just start with that. Your caller, Martin.
Martin?
He was the guy who was talking about public schools.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he actually is a human or if he's being paid or he's an assistant.
He sounded like a bot to me.
Affirmative. Yeah, I got the same impression.
An AI bot, one of those like one of those supposed grassroots movements, which are actually astroturfing because they're being started by billionaires who will send out millions of adverts on Facebook and so on. He sounded very much like the human embodiment of one of those adverts.
Exactly. What it is, we're close to an election and they're all popping out the woodworks pretending to be human. But what I would say is I'm sick of the Blanche Dubois excuse for public schools.
The Blanche Dubois school excuse.
Blanche Dubois, like street all private schools. I
Stella.
Rely on the kindness of strangers.
Yes, I rely on the kindness of strangers. Yeah,
which
Blanche.
is like if they're so sure about what a private school does, why do they need charitable status?
It's a con. The people who can't afford to send their children to private school are subsidising those that can. We're being had big time.
But also, it amazes me also as well. It's like, there's this phrase recently, I don't know if you've noticed it, it's become like a buzz phrase, error of judgment. And a multitude of sins gets explained away by that. I did this. It was an error of judgment.
Right. What is it you're referring to?
Wallpaper. Well, I even heard Nigel Farage come out when he's talking about one of his candidates that said we should have appeased Hitler.
Yeah, right.
We've got a few idiots in our party.
Yes, no doubt.
Indeed, but it was like error of judgment.
An error of judgment, yeah. Whoops. Whoopsie doodle, yeah.
I mean, if you think about the large kind of front row of our politicians on the front bench of the Conservative Party, the Tory Party, you've got...
Wow. I had no idea that's where that was going. David Cameron did a what now? 0345 6060 973. I think we want an exclamation mark next to his name, just in case in future. Yeah. You can text 84850. Email nica@lbc.co.uk, and if you're on Twitter, it's at LBC. Back with more tales from the farmyard after this.
Leading Britain's conversation, Nick Abbot. Alexa, send a comment to LBC.
Now, wait a minute. I don't like that kind of talk. Now, just stop it. It upsets me.
Here's calling Glasgow. Alex.
Hi, Nick.
Alex.
I'm unhappy, Nick.
Oh, no.
I think you've been unfair to the gentleman that called in earlier regarding private school VAT.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the football result.
No, I don't follow football, Nick, so it doesn't affect me.
Oh,
I know.
No.
The next question people always ask is, "Oh, you're a rugby man," and the answer is also no. I'm not a sports person.
No sports?
No, it's kind of a good thing though, because it means that I can pretend to follow whatever team's winning, whether that's Scotland or England or other.
Right. What about the Olympics? Because when the Olympics come around, surely you're going to watch some of that.
Probably not. Honestly,
the finest example of humankind that is living on this planet, probably now or at any time in history, will be competing against each other. This is as good as the human race can get, and you're just going to shrug your shoulders and not watch?
I'll watch it if it's on, and like I say, the benefit of not following anyone in particular is that I can just root for whoever.
Okay.
But anyway. So, I think Labour have dropped the ball on the private school VAT thing.
Dropped the ball?
Well,
is that a sporting analogy?
Oh, there we go. All the puns. No, but I also don't think it's sensible when people say that they're not going to vote for Labour because of one specific policy. They always say you can please some of the people all of the time, and all of the people some of the time, but you can't please all the people all the time. So I think to put the next election in jeopardy because you disagree with one policy from Labour is not sensible. But
I don't think there are a lot of people who are considering not voting Labour because of one particular policy, particularly as it's the private school charitable status policy that you're talking about. I don't think there's a large number of people who are considering not voting Labour for that reason, are there?
I'm not sure. I listen to LBC quite often. Maybe they're the outliers and the loud minority, but there's quite a few people that text into LBC saying,
"Oh yeah,
I've changed my mind on Labour."
Well, I'm sure, yes. Each and every one of them, I bet, is a paid-for Russian robot.
I think that's unfair, but it's rare for someone to... I was listening to Ian Dale earlier, and there was a lot of people phoning in to comment on the Ukraine war, etc., who were making quite a lot of bold claims that when Ian questioned them on where they had heard this, the answer was YouTube or somewhere like that.
Facebook,
so it was refreshing to hear that guy phone in earlier on who actually had all the studies and the facts to hand.
No, I think you used the word facts loosely there, Alex. He cited some studies that I'd never heard of and that were from other countries in large numbers. And because I'd never heard of them, I didn't have the opposing statistics at my fingertips, which is a trick that politicians pull all the time. They say, well, of course, under our munificent administration, things are 86.3% better than they were during the previous administration, which is a number that you can't refute because they just made it up on the spot.
You can crunch the numbers for yourself, though.
Later. You can do it later, when it's too late. The interview is over, the studio lights are closed, and the MP of the day has flitted off to do the same trick again on the next interviewer, on a different station.
Well, Labour in 2023, when they announced this plan, said that they thought it would bring in 1.7 billion.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
The VAT on private schools.
Doesn't matter.
Well, exactly, but the IFS put the number closer to 1.6.
billion.
All right. That's a lot.
And
That's a
then
big chunk of change, but it doesn't make any difference.
But that's my point, though, is that if you take let's go with 1.6 billion. If you take that 1.6 billion and divide it by the 32,000 schools that are in the UK...
Right. Doesn't make any difference, Alex. That is not the way to think about it. Because I could say, well, you know what, some people, rich people, like to drive Rolls Royces. So let's put a subsidy on the purchase price of a Rolls Royce. Everybody in the land can chip in. It's just £1. If we can get £1 from everybody in the country, that'll be 60 or 70 million pounds. With that money, we can then halve the price of a Rolls Royce, thereby making the wealthy very, very happy indeed. Let's do that. If we don't do that, we'll only save £1 a person. So come on, Alex, what do you say?
That's my point. Is that they're claiming that the VAT is going to pay for this and pay for that when it's not necessarily the case. Because even if you use the numbers,
Alex, are you listening to me? Did you just listen to what I just said?
I'm listening.
Right. Well, what's your reaction then to what I just said? It's just £1 per person. We could make 65, 70 million pounds with which we could subsidise the price of a Rolls Royce. They're very expensive. Even the wealthy would balk at the price of a £250,000 Rolls Royce. We could take 100 grand off that. Let's do it straight away because it's only £1 a person. What difference does it make?
You said earlier that if politicians had to put their children into public schools, that they would increase the quality of the public school system.
Alex, can you hear me? Is this thing on? Answer the question.
I don't think you can equate subsidising Rolls Royces to...
Yes, you can. It's the same thing. It's people's luxury choices for their lifestyle. In fact, it's worse than that because private education is going to give you a huge advantage over the 95% of the population that didn't go to a private school. An advantage that they already have. They're already halfway up the ladder by dint of being born to a well-off family. Why the hell should poorer people who can't afford to send their children to private school subsidise the wealthy who can? You can't get past that by saying, oh, well, it wouldn't make any difference. It's only a certain amount of money and it wouldn't really improve the state schools if they just spent that exact amount of money on the state schools. No, my contention is that it's the principle of the thing first off, and I don't think you can get past that. All other arguments are pointless. So, but if you do really want to get past that, then the people who are making the decisions about where government's money goes as far as schooling is concerned would decide that by magic, that if their children were forced to go to those state schools, that more money would be going to them. They would open art departments, and they would have theatre departments, and they would learn Mandarin, they'd play golf, and they'd go skiing, and all these things that private schools provide for their kids. And the class sizes would halve, and the standards would go up. Of course they blooming well would, because that's what people want for their children. It's just that only 5% of us can afford to send our children to a luxury lifestyle choice of a private school. Why the hell should people who can't afford it subsidise those that can? I mean, it's absolutely insane that people keep saying that. Anyway, I can't stand it anymore, Alex. But thanks for the call. 0345 6060 973. And just that people are prepared to argue about that really is an indication of what a cap-doffing nation we are. It's almost like a surf nation. Not SURF. The other one. Not talking about the Beach Boys.
Rock and roll!
Not that kind of surf. In much the same way as people think that this bloke's a genius.
You're better informed than I am. I don't know anything.
Just because he speaks like that. We're conditioned to dop our caps and genuflect before them. It's one of the worst parts of the British psyche. It really is. This belief that has been inculcated within us that the upper classes are born to rule and deserve everything that they get, while we get nothing, and thank them profusely for the nothing that we get. I heard somebody on the Ian Dale show, and this is one of the things that crops up all the time, and I knew that they were going to say it before they said it. Oh, that's the politics of envy, that is. if you are considering saying that in answer to a position from somebody that, they would want to maybe just spread the wealth around a bit more equitably. Politicians go on about growth all the time, but if we just spread the wealth around a bit more equitably, because what we are in this country now is a very rich country with a lot of poor people in it. There's a ton of money in this country. It's just that it's in the hands of a vanishingly few number of people. But if we spread it around equally per head of population, we would find that we're pretty well off. That's the measure that people keep talking about, that we're the 6th richest country in the world, only by dint of our total wealth. But if the total wealth of the nation was owned by one person, to exaggerate to make a point, then that wouldn't really feel like a wealthy country. If 65, 70 million people had nothing and one person had £3 trillion, then the wealth would still be the same per head of population, but it's not spread around. But just the idea that you should spread wealth more equitably, that the rich should not get subsidies paid for by the poor. And by the way, those same rich people keep banging on about people living a life of luxury on benefits. Well, who's getting the most benefits? Fossil fuel companies get more in subsidies than they pay in taxes. Benefits. But you will get people who have been almost like programmed to say, when it's suggested that we spread the wealth more, that's the politics of envy. Morons. We're surrounded by morons. Unless you know otherwise, in which case you must correct me. 0345 6060 973.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC. This is LBC from Global. Leading Britain's conversation with Nick Abbot.
Yeah! Dude! Who do you think you're talking to?
I'm glad you asked. I'm talking to a person in Watford called Enzo. Enzo.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Hello? Sorry, I had you on speakerphone there.
Speakerphone?
Indeed. No, sorry. Hi, Nick. You may remember I spoke to you a few months ago. I missed the opportunity to deny Suella Braverman her small soy cappuccino when she came into the coffee shop that I worked in.
A small soy cappuccino.
You said it just like that when I told you first time.
Yeah, that sounds awful.
Anyway, at the time, I phoned you and said that I thought I'd let my country down in missing that opportunity.
Right.
I'm delighted to say that hopefully it doesn't seem like it's going to matter. And
so hang on a minute. Let's back up. So Suella came into your place. You work in a coffee establishment, a barista, no doubt.
Correct.
Which is a long, fancy title for somebody who just pours water through beans. I do believe the machine does all the work. Barista, my eye. Anyway, Suella came in and ordered a small soy cappuccino. Did she?
She did, yeah. And I told you at the time I wasn't sure if it was her, hence why I didn't do anything. But I would have happily lost my job to deny serving.
Yeah. I mean, is this one of those places where they write the name of the customer on the cup?
It's not, no. Right. But I think we all know what I would have written on it.
Suella. Yeah.
Suella.
Talk about a no-fun drink, though. A small soy cappuccino. I mean, this really is a person who does not like pleasure in her life, isn't it?
Yeah. So I mean, that's exactly. It's possibly the most depressing order you could have. You know? I mean, some people require it, sure, but
yeah,
it paints a picture anyway.
It does.
Well, like I say, hopefully it's not going to matter, and the Tories are going to get their comeuppance anyway. But I've been doing a bit of thinking, and I also think that as much as they may lose heavily, and I do hope that that's the case, they might have succeeded in pulling off their own small magic trick. There's two types of voters, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've always thought you're voting for yourself and what you want,
yeah,
or you're voting for the kind of society you want to live in.
But that's the same thing, though.
I suppose so. Yeah, I suppose so. I see what you mean. I suppose so.
I think there's two types of voters. One that votes for their own self-interest and ones that don't vote.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But what I mean by that is, you may vote for a party that means that you're going to pay more in tax in your personal situation, but you're happy to do that because you want to see that wealth spread around, is what I mean.
You want to be more Scandinavian.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. Precisely. And I'm baffled because they seem to have pulled a magic trick on the population of this country.
Well, they seem to have been able to hide a lot of money. I mean, they made that disappear right enough.
They certainly did. But I've been listening to the radio and reading lots and speaking to people I know, and I hear some things that get said now, and
things?
I can only imagine, things that get said that I can only imagine if they were heard out loud just 20 years ago, you'd sort of look at people a bit funny for saying that. The first one is saying that people complaining about Keir Starmer being boring.
Oh.
When did that become
a
the
thing?
bar that we were setting for politicians?
Well, I'll give you the exact date.
I can't comment on that.
When he got elected to power, suddenly all we wanted was a clown for a PM, and we got them in large numbers. Liz?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
It's just unbelievable. And you have people complaining about the lies and deception of the Tory party over the last 14 years. And then those same people are complaining and criticising Labour.
Yeah, for not giving enough promises that they can't keep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, is it any wonder we can't make big sweeping promises? They don't know what they're going to inherit. They don't know what they're going to be able to do with it.
Of course.
Finally, someone's trying to be a bit honest, I think.
And they're being punished for it.
Yeah,
exactly
it's
right. Yes.
unbelievable.
But what about the rainbows and the unicorns and sweeties and chocolates for all?
Well, what about them?
That's what people want promised. They want, I'm going to give you more money and you're going to laugh more frequently.
Yeah. And, just maybe, I mean, you were speaking to a previous caller and you were saying maybe it is a vocal minority, and it's actually, it's not the general population, but I hear so much about people buying this thing about the Labour tax burden from the party that has brought us in austerity and brought us to the point where we've got nothing left to show for it after 14 years and already have a record tax burden.
It's like being bent over a school desk and being thrashed for 14 years in a row and then being told that, you better not you better not complain about me because the next headmaster might thrash you.
Exactly.
You are all what's the phrase? You are all registered to vote. You're registered to vote. Please tell me that you're registered to vote.
Me?
Yes.
Oh yes, absolutely. I'm out canvassing tomorrow morning.
All right. Good work, that man. Thanks a lot, Enzo. Only 3 days to go. Wake up, kids. It's later than you think. It's the 15th of the 6th. Can you believe that? Bloomin' freezing outside, but that does mean that you have 3 days in which to register to vote. Oh, but I don't want to. It's so boring. They're all the same. I'll do it later. So stop saying that. Do it now. I mean it. Like right now. You can do it right now. It won't take you but a couple of minutes. 3 minutes tops. You can register to vote in the time it takes to smoke a cheroot. And if you can't be bothered to leave the house, because, on the 4th of July, it might actually be snowing by then, if the weather continues in its current mode. So if you don't want to go outside, then get yourself a postal vote. And I think you've got until the 19th to do that, which is this week. It's coming up this week, 3 or 4 days tops. Anybody who's still at this moment suggests that they're not going to vote needs to be corrected. Thanks a lot, Enzo. 0345 6060 973. Bodmin. Hello, Malcolm.
Good evening, Nick. How are you, sir?
I am great, mate.
Been a funny week, isn't it?
Funny?
Yeah. A lot of comedy politics going on, I think.
Well, which ones do you have in mind?
Well, let me speak first of all about the debates.
Yeah.
You had Sunak shouting his head off at Starmer in the first debate.
Mm-hmm.
You had Morden shouting her head off at Angela in the second debate.
Yes.
You had Sunak totally controlled because he wasn't allowed anywhere near Starmer in the second leaders' debate. And then last night was absolute comedy gold because you had Morden literally screaming her head off from start to finish at Angela Rayner. And there's memes this evening. Well, there's loads of people who are posting the clip of her saying higher taxes, higher taxes, higher taxes, but all the other 6 members on the panel. And it seems to me, Nick, that they are literally losing their head because...
Yes, it very much looks like that. It looks like they're going completely, doolally, as my dad used to say.
I mean,
like that.
But the thing is that, Nick, if you were worth the better end of £1 billion, would you sign up to be just a member of Parliament for the next 5 years?
No, definitely not. If he ain't going to be a backbench MP, no way.
Well, I'm looking at a story now on Apple News, and it is looking at the headlines for stories, and the headline says that he is going to serve his full 5 years.
Yeah. Right.
Sunak vows it to serve full term as MP, even if he loses the election. Now, Nick, can you honestly see that fella in Richmond in Yorkshire on a Friday, all day Friday, sitting the surgery, answering people's problems about their rent and their I don't know.
The price of heating my swimming pool is through the roof, Minister. What are you going to do about it?
But it's oh God. So, you remember 5 years ago the Boris Johnson victory and the days and weeks and months after, and then Brexit vote 2016. You lost. You remain there.
Get over it.
All that. And now it is just such satisfaction to see these people who are absolute animals. They would rip your heart out to get Brexit. The vote won.
And while they're doing it, convince you that they're doing you a favour.
Yeah, but the Sunak, that man would literally run you through rather than have you in any way harmed.
I very much doubt he would do that, Malcolm. He would have one of his people do it for him.
Yeah. But then the BBC, this is what pleases me largely also, the BBC, who the Tories accused for years and years and years of bias against them, I tell you what, they are actually being biased against them.
I don't think they are. I don't think they are. The absolute most, what they're doing is they're fact-checking them.
No.
Yes.
Rubbish.
Look, come on. Every panel discussion programme is weighted towards the right, always.
Yeah, well...
They'll have one from Labour, one from the Lib Dems, perhaps. They'll have a Tory, and they'll have somebody from a think tank, one of those Tufton Street people, which is the organisation that gives the Tories their talking points. Fossil fuel is good. Oil is good for you.
I was watching telly this morning, right? And Sky News, Farage and Tice were doing a news conference because they passed Tories in the polls.
Yeah.
Well, they
in
passed
one
them
poll.
In one poll.
Yeah.
Out of 6, I think, that had been published today, they passed them in one. And I flipped over, and who just happened then to be on the BBC with Nicky Campbell on the radio and on TV. So he's on Radio 4 or Radio 2 or whichever it is, and he's on the BBC News channel. Nigel Farage answering questions from the British public.
It's like Trump in America. Like I keep saying, the media organisations cannot stop putting Nigel Farage on because he is box office. They just can't resist it.
But it's, and I can understand. Well, when you look at these Tories, ripping their hair out, their heads exploding all over this. I can understand it because where they've fallen from, Nick, it is absolutely astounding, man. An 80-seat majority that Boris Johnson
with
had.
which they
But
did
I remember talking
nothing.
To you. I keep saying to you, I remember 6, 7 years ago, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, being on here saying this party is going to come unstuck because they have got where they are on lies. And Nick, all those lies are now they're arriving home.
Malcolm, everybody that believed those lies, everybody that believed those lies in the first place are still convinced that those lies will eventually come true if only they keep believing.
No, I disagree. Some yes, and I think it's an ever decreasing number because my mate, look, who's an ardent Brexiteer now, he's mocking himself. He's telling me he's moving to Portugal because he's got a golden visa. Now, this is a bloke who is an absolute vehement Brexiter, claims he's bought a villa in Portugal and he's got a golden visa. Oh, God. Imagine the Portuguese, but part of the EU, having people arrive from the UK who all voted Brexit. Man. That would drive me up the wall, Nick, if I was Portuguese.
Yeah, I guess it would, yeah. Pretty soon the Portuguese are going to be rioting in the streets saying, go home, or whatever that phrase is in Portuguese. Malcolm, got to go. Thanks for that. 0345 6060 973. Jeff says, I'm not going to vote. What? Why? Jeff does not explain. This anonymous text says, would you buy a used plan from a man who didn't have the sense to come in out of the rain? Yeah, I'm glad he got a soaking. There's little puppy dog eyes, that hurt expression on his face. Oh, so cute. Not. Annette says, I'm 68, my husband is 69. Both Remainers. We support votes for 16 and 70-year-olds. We can't wait to get rid of this Tory government. We are totally supporting Labour, says Annette. And Phil says, I can't wait for the election. Just think we'll finally have an elected Prime Minister. What a novelty. Yeah. Get out and vote, people. The time for change is here, says Phil. Yeah, what a novelty that would be to have an elected Prime Minister that's not a...
The great big greedy nincompoop.
Leading Britain's conversation. Nick Abbott. Alexa, send a comment to LBC.
Hot air. H-O-T-A-I-R.
Cowbridge in South Wales. Hello, Chris.
Hot air.
Hot air, yeah.
Fabulous. Thank you for that. Thanks for taking my call. I wanted to call. Rishi's had a bit of another tough week, hasn't he? It just seems to go from bad to worse to skip fire, doesn't it?
Yes.
Did you see that Sky News debate?
No.
Earlier this week.
I can only suffer so much.
Oh God! Well, it was bad enough when Beth Rigby was interviewing him, when he was sitting there doing his tech bro thing.
Yeah.
But when he stood in front of the audience, that was excruciatingly painful. Because, we've talked about this one. He just doesn't do people well, does he?
When you say excruciatingly painful, do you mean deliciously painful?
Oh, get the whip out, go on.
No, because you want it. If you want it, you don't get it. If you don't want it, then you get it.
It was literally, I mean, I think what the worst part of it is he did the whole sort of Love Actually routine, and they laughed at him.
The Love Actually routine? What's that?
Well, yeah. Well, he was like, here I am, your flawed Prime Minister, standing in front of my country, asking them to love me, and they just laughed at him. I mean, he didn't obviously use those words, but he did the whole puppy dog thing.
Yeah.
And when he asked a question, they just scoffed at him. I mean, especially when he said the things about, like, waiting lists to come down. And Beth Rigby just literally flat out said, well, actually, they've gone up.
Yeah.
And then he kept insisting they've gone down and said, no, I know maths. I know that 1.2 to 1.5 is going up. But he insisted on that. But it was just such a horrible... I mean, he must have known at that moment
I don't know. It must have been that moment where he knows, this is not going to work out.
I don't know. I doubt that he's gone through life ever hearing the word no. He's probably never been upbraided or corrected at any point in his entire perfumed life up until this point, which is why he just can't seem to get his head around it, can't seem to accept that not everybody thinks he's the most wonderful thing that ever floated across the ground.
Yeah, I mean, I've also heard a number of Tory MPs being interviewed this week on multiple different channels.
Yeah.
And one of the things I've started hearing coming out at the latter of the end of this week is them talking about a vote for Farage is a vote for Starmer. And that would just give him a majority that's a blank check for a government with no plan. Yeah, and I'm just thinking, hang on a second. Who had a majority in 2019?
A stonking majority, I do believe that Bodger said it was.
Yeah.
Stonking majority, he said, and then did nothing with it.
Right, so wasn't that like a blank check?
Yeah, completely. They've had a blank check for 14 years. We don't really have much of a democracy in this country. We just have a series of dictatorships.
I'm just wondering, the blank check is only okay when it's got a little sort of blue rosette on it.
Yes. Except they don't put blue rosettes on anything anymore because that would make it look as though it was coming from the Conservative Party, and they want to colour everything green to make it look as though they're from the Green Party or Reform or whoever it might be, anybody but the Tories.
Well, what was that Tory MP who's got a brochure up North of England, and on the front cover of it, she's got a picture of Nigel Farage next to her.
The Conservative Party would like to dissociate itself from the Conservative Party.
What on earth is that about?
I have no idea. It's about living in the real world where they realise there would probably be a better chance of getting elected if they had a different leader.
Well, would that be a different leader? Maybe that leader would have a plan that worked.
Yeah, rather than just to say the word plan a lot. Exactly.
It's just painful. By the way, just to finish up, because I know you're pressed for time, you had a guy who was talking, you used that analogy of the Rolls Royces.
Yeah.
James O'Brien has a great thing. He talks about, when he talks about the Tory MPs or something, and he talks about like this business owner who takes his employee out to the car park and puts his arm around him and says, "You've been working really hard this year. See that Ferrari parked right there?" He said, "Yeah." He said, if you work really hard for the next year, I'm going to be able to buy another Ferrari to put right next to it.
Yes, I'll give you a look at that one too. Yeah, well, James O'Brien can say that kind of thing because he is a trained professional. Don't you try this at home, Chris? All right, thanks a lot, mate. 0345 6060 973. I was actually honking out loud. Well, the moments that I wasn't holding my head in stunned amazement, I was honking out loud when I was reading this story about supposedly about a 14-year-old child who goes to private school, who is appalled at the prospect of being sent to a bog-standard sink state school. And he was bleating on and on about how dreadfully unfair everything was. So I might get back to that in a minute. Leave it with me. I have detailed files. Because there's just enough people who would respond to that by saying, well, anybody that suggests that we shouldn't subsidise the rich is just engaging in the politics of envy. No! And they just go furious about that. Cap doffers and hem sniffers, each and every one of them. Morons. People who are actively invested in voting against their own best interests. Because they think that, it's their place. They know their place. God, we're still living in an upstairs, downstairs country. It's painful. Paul says, do you remember just a few short weeks ago the Tories were trying to scare people into voting? Paul says, do you remember just a few short weeks ago the Tories were trying to scare people into voting for them by saying that otherwise there might be a hung parliament? Now they're trying to get people to vote for them by saying that otherwise they may have no MPs. I mean, what is going on there? What is going on in their heads? What can they really be thinking? You know, not the prepared responses that they all say. And I don't know how they think that that's improving their chances. That every single person that the Tories send out just says the same thing over and over and over again. I mean, I think they need to fire all of their PR people. All of those highly expensive people that are designing their campaign, they need to fire all of them. If they have, if they knew what they were about. Because everything they're doing is wrong. Including sending people out like robots.
Affirmative.
To just repeat the same thing over and over again. And the interviewer will ask them a question and they'll say, well, under the Conservative government, we have increased benefits by 3,000% as compared to the previous government, which was in deficit to the tune of 10 million. 10 million per person was in deficit, which is 38% more than was previously available. You know, they just come out with numbers and nonsense signifying nothing. And regardless of what the question is, they'll just repeat what they just said again. And then the interviewer will get a little bit narked and ask them again. And they say, well, I've already answered that question. No, you haven't answered that question. You just keep repeating the same blooming irrelevant series of spurious statistics over and over. But they're doing it because they think it's working. Incredible. What more evidence do they need? It is not working. It's failing because people can... I mean, you know, that phrase, people aren't stupid, is not entirely correct because the masses are asses. That is evident for all to see. But there's only, when we're only stupid up to a certain limit. I mean, do us a favour. Just repeating the same line over and over again, not just the one person, all of them say the exact same words in the same order whenever they're presented to a camera. And we're not supposed to notice that? They think it's just ramming home the message. It's not, it's just being annoying. How's being annoying working out for you? 0345 6060 973. Oh, look, it's 12:30 on LBC. The news headlines with Serena Farrow.
Nick Abbott on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Some nobody.
0345 6060 973. Here is a person in Tooting called Jan. Hello, Jan.
Oh, yes. Good evening.
Yes, Jan.
So I was ringing up. I'm really happy to see parts of the manifesto of Labour.
You're happy?
I'm worried about it.
HAPPY-ness over in your place.
I was so worried about, everyone's been a bit concerned about where Karma stood, and where he stood with his politics and everything. So it's really great. I think some of it's quite surprised because I was getting concerned because I think one of the big unions recently came out and said, they're not behind and they can't back him. They're worried about.
They can't endorse the manifesto. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know what their view is now. I haven't had the chance to check out that. But
I don't know which party they would endorse. I mean, select one.
Yeah, so I don't know, but I thought what was interesting was how he's looking to nationalise. Look, the Royal Mail has been sold recently, hasn't it? So it's interesting to see how he's looking to attract the middle classes, though he's putting VAT on private schools. But his number one priority is to get economic growth and boost the economy.
Yeah. His number one priority should be spreading the wealth around a bit.
Yes, so that's what he's doing.
That would be the easiest way to revivify an economy, because if you give a millionaire $100,000, then it's not going to really change their life much. They're not really going to go out and spend it. They just put it with all the other money that they've got. But if you give somebody who's on 20 grand a year, a cheque for $5,000, let's say, then they're going to go out and spend every single last penny, thereby, virtuously increasing the wealth of everybody that they spend that money with.
Yeah. So Nick, what made me happy was that look, he's looking to, for instance, as I just said, he's looking to take the railways into public ownership. So he'll get the backing of. I'm sure the unions won't be so disappointed, about what he may have been, what they might have had in their heads about what he's doing. Though he's appealing to the middle classes and putting that on private schools.
How is that appealing to the middle classes?
Sorry?
How is that appealing to the middle classes?
No, I mean, there was something he said before this manifesto came out. He was interviewed, I think it was by one of the papers, that he said he's appealing to the middle class voters and that he wasn't a tribal Labour.
Right. Yeah, he's got the middle class voters in the bag.
Yeah,
more middle-class voters are going to vote Labour, or so the polls suggest, than going to vote Conservative. The Conservatives have poor people voting for them. Weirdly, the party of millionaires is attractive to poor people, and the party of, which is supposed to be the party of the worker, the dirty fingernailed toiler. That's the Labour Party, and they are attractive to white-collar workers. Weird.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? But what's interesting is that he wants, like, for instance, the things that you've often talked about is that, look, he looks to, abolish non-dom tax status and close a loophole. So he's looking to...
All right, I'll believe that when I see it.
Use the windfall tax. So he's looking to raise $8.6 billion.
Yeah. Believe it when I see it. Yeah, promises. Let's see what they do actually in position.
Windfall tax on oil and gas companies make money from.
I don't believe any of the above.
You don't believe it? That's what
a windfall tax on the oil company. The oil companies are at this moment loading a lorry full of cash. They're going to drive over to make that not happen.
So why do they? Because that's what they say. He's unveiled something like 8.6 billion tax rises that he's going to get.
Okay, well let's see if he actually does it. And the other thing they are promising is they're going to fully investigate all of that PPE rackets. The billions and billions of pounds that have just disappeared out of all of our pockets and gone into the supplying yachts for the criminal class. He's going to investigate all that, and I'll believe that when it happens as well.
Yeah, but what about this one, then? Do you believe this? Because he's looking to have a state-owned clean power company called Great British Energy, which would help boost... which would help cut bills and boost security. And
terrific, let's see it. It's
funded by the windfall tax on oil and gas companies.
Okay, great, let's see it.
But, but what worries me, though, is that, say, for instance, more on the international side of things, because I'm following that quite closely, because it's like he says he would support.
Who are we talking about now?
He would support
Who's
NATO
he?
and Ukraine.
Who's he?
Starmer.
Starmer, right?
As Prime Minister, he would be supporting NATO and supporting Ukraine.
Yeah.
But there again, there's the big thing about. He would have a big decision to make, which is really, really worrying, because nothing is. I mean, the recent meeting that they just had with the G7 about supporting Ukraine and America, either raising the money and they get yes to give them something like 60 billion. I haven't got the figures in front of me.
Yeah, but what's worrying you about that?
Yeah, because the thing is that. He has to make a decision. He said, Starmer saying that he will recognise that he wants to support Ukraine. But there again, is he going to support them when they? Is he going to allow British long-range missiles?
Jan, I don't know. Why are you asking me? I've got no clue.
No, I'm just saying because that's we're in a dangerous territory.
Well, we're in the territory of I'm gonna, and everybody's promising I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. Let's see what happens. And judge them on their actions rather than these fantastical promises that they always throw out just before an election. And how are the last set of promises working out for us?
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah, not that great. Thanks a lot, Jan. 0345 6060 973. This text says, Starmer has all the charisma and passion of a speak and spell machine from the 80s. I'm not holding my breath for a radical programme of reform for the workers. Well, he better or sadly will end up with Nigel Farage in 5 years' time. Forthcoming attractions. Keith says, today is my official birthday, although I was born in September. Could you give me a jingle to celebrate? No. Not only do you get a jingle, Keith, but you also get to name your own honours list. You can chuck out funny titles and a badge to all of your mates. But you must create a smokescreen to hide that fact by chucking a gong at a celebrity along the way. And a controversial celebrity would be best, because people will concentrate on that and not on you handing out favours to friends. I think that's how it works. 0345 6060 973. Perth. Hello, Mike.
Hi, Nick. A short while ago, I listened to Rachel Reeves. You'll have heard the comments about this Conservative Party having the highest tax. They've been the highest taxed
since ever, since money was invented.
Was it 70 or 80 years or something like that? And she gave one of the reasons. She gave one of the reasons as being because of frozen the personal tax threshold. She said. Yeah. Now, are you aware that if the word hypocrisy seems to spring to my mind, because I believe that the Labour are going to be hold this freeze on personal tax thresholds for the foreseeable future. Are you aware of that?
You mean that they're promising to do that, or that you have heard that they might?
No, I've not heard that they might. I've heard that they will.
From whom?
Yeah, are you not aware of that?
Yeah, but from whom have you heard?
I was listening to Politics Live today, and what do you call it? The Labour. I didn't know her. I don't know her name, but she was the Labour lady on the panel, and she was asked that today, and she didn't deny it. Let's put it that way.
Right. That's not confirming it. That's just not denying it.
That's not denying it, because I read it in my local paper as well.
Right, Mike, would you trust a politician that told you with certainty what they could do in the future as far as the nation's finances are concerned, not knowing what position we will be at that point? Would you trust that person?
Yeah.
What? No, the answer to that question is no. Of course you wouldn't trust that person.
What would you say if Labour are going to freeze the personal tax threshold? What would you say about that? Would you say that's okay?
It depends on what they do with that money.
So they're going to drag. I thought they weren't going to be. Weren't they? I thought they were not going to.
No, I get
increase taxes for the. I mean, fiscal drag is going to bring pensioners like myself and the low-paid into paying more and more tax for the foreseeable future.
Okay, well, and your happiness about that very much depends on what they do with that money, doesn't it? Because at the moment, people feel irate at paying such a vast amount of tax because they don't feel that they're getting anything for it. The NHS doesn't work. The police won't come around if you call them up. If you're being burgled at that moment, they still won't show up. There are potholes in the roads that are so huge that I saw something today that said, in this country, we used to drive on the right. Now we just drive wherever there's still a road without a hole. Which is right. We're just weaving all over the road in order not to dive into a pothole. Nothing works in this country anymore. And so that's why people are irate at the amount of tax that we pay. Then, look at Scandinavia. Those people pay a lot of tax too. But they're happy and verifiably happier because the World Happiness Index comes out. It's always the same countries, right at the top, the big tax-paying countries whose government take that tax money and they provide a safety net. They provide comfort. They provide childcare. They provide good health service. They provide good care for people who need it without going into hospital. All of these things are very, very, in fact, crucially important to a happy life, a feeling of security. We ain't got no security here. Everybody in this country is 2 missed paychecks away from being homeless.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. And in a very real sense, there you go.
Bye-bye.
Good talking to you, Mike. Thanks a lot, mate. Are you beginning to feel happier already?
No.
Not really. 0345 6060 973. Oh, look, here's another Glasgow caller. Dean.
Hi, Nick. How you doing?
Good, thanks.
Yeah, look, what you said earlier about how we've got to a stage where the Tories are just repeating and repeating and repeating, and they're sort of sticking to the same party line.
Obviously, they've been told to do that. Do not deviate from this script. Learn this script before you go on TV and just say it over and over and over again, regardless of what you're asked.
Absolutely, but I don't think that they're under any illusion that it's actually working. I think that the only reason that they're doing it is because they don't sort of really have an alternative. The alternative in which they actually have is to be honest.
Well, yeah, I mean,
you know what I mean? And
when you've exhausted all other opportunities and methods of ingratiating yourself with the public, try honesty. You never know, it might work.
Yeah. Look, but what I want to say is, look, they aren't the only ones who do it. You know, we always sort of hear it from the SNP and we hear it from Labour. Look at this new initiative that Labour have been promoting. I believe it's called EB Energy, and they've been on the TV quite a lot up here in sort of Scotland, where they say to us up here that GB Energy will be based in Scotland, but you can go onto Company's House at the moment and you can see that it's actually sort of registered in Wales. So I think they're all up to the same kind of a tricks. You don't really get any honesty. And look, if the only people who are actually responsible for the rise of the Reform Party are SNP, are Labour, are the Tories. The only way that you ever see the obviously sort of a rise in the right is when the left aren't doing their job, and the only way that you see obviously sort of a rise in the left is when the parties who are on the right are too extreme. So we kind of need a party who are honest and who are more in the middle to say that, yes, say, for instance, yes, we absolutely need immigration and it's extremely sort of valuable, and if we didn't have immigration, the country would fall to bits. But
yes.
we don't need unlimited immigration,
right.
And it needs to be responsible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. You're getting an argument there from me. Good work, Dean. Gotta go. Thanks a lot, mate. 0345 6060 973. Jay says, my word, I've aged without realising it. I'm voting Conservative unless my birth certificate is fake. I'm definitely not 65 plus, though if I were, I'd be closer to getting my triple lock pension. What? My word, I've aged without realising it. I'm voting Conservative, and unless my birth certificate is fake, I'm definitely not 65 plus. Oh, I see. Right. I think I see. Vivian says, I'm 70 and I've never voted Conservative or voted for Brexit. 70 years old. when I say that people over 65 are going to vote Conservative, I don't mean every single one of you. Andrew says, I'll be 65 in October, so thank goodness the election's in July. It's not automatic. On receipt of a birthday card that's got 65 written on the front of it, it doesn't mean that you will vote Conservative against your will. It's just that you are more likely to after you get to the age of 65. Below 65, not so much. And the younger you get, the more they say no. In fact, they say...
No, 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 no.
LBC with Nick Abbott. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850.
Come on, we're running late.
We are running late. 0345 6060 973. Northwich in Cheshire. Dominic.
Oh, hi, Nick.
Dominic.
Yeah, I'm just trying to sort of like scrape my memory and see if I've got this right. But I think back in the 90s, the Tories came up with an even better wheeze of a tax break for private schools, which was to offer the policy of a voucher scheme. So what they would do, say if your private fees were £10,000 a year, the government would subsidise it by paying £5,000 a year. And this was meant to like open up access to private schools to the poorer people.
Right.
But of course, in practice, the poorer people couldn't afford the other half.
Yeah, that's right, yes.
So the other £5,000 a year per pupil, they couldn't just magic that up. So basically, it was just another massive subsidy for the private schools.
Yes.
So
for
it
people,
can be worse.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, for people like this chap.
You're better informed than I am. I don't know anything.
The kind of person who would berate those on benefits for being idle slackers are themselves the greatest recipients of benefits. They just don't call it benefits.
Yeah, it's socialisation for the rich and all the risk taken for the poor.
Exactly.
But yeah, it can be worse. You can have a tax, just a VAT tax break for private schools, but you can actually subsidise them even more. So the point I was trying to make was, we're lucky that we are where we are at now, and if Labour actually do tax this extreme luxury, because it is an extreme luxury to go to private school.
Of course.
And as you pointed out, it's a luxury, not just an immediate luxury, but a luxury that keeps paying out.
Yes. It cements in place the status quo. It keeps those families with the money. That's what it does.
I actually think that the VAT rate for private schools should be a super VAT rate. It should be double, like 40% or something like that.
I'm not sure that you should be able to make a profit from educating children, particularly those who have already been born halfway up the ladder of life.
Yeah, I don't know. So it hopefully it's something that will change. But it's going to take a while to redistribute the $2 trillion or whatever that's been taken out of the public funds and given away to rich people over the last 15 years.
Redistribute?
Warning!
You sound like a socialist, Dominic.
Oh dear. Right, I better go.
All right, thanks a lot, mate. 0345 6060 973. Socialism. Tavish texts, if Labour lowers the voting age to 16, then it will backfire on them. This is because the 16 and 70-year-olds will vote the Green Party to help prevent the furthest extent of climate change, to give our generation a better future to live and work in. Tavish, don't worry about it. 16 and 17-year-olds aren't going to vote, even if you do give them the ability to do that. I can hear their whining from here. Oh, but I don't want to. It's so boring. I'll do it later. Like that. I've got some very important business on my phone to gawp at for like 6 hours. They aren't going to vote. 18 to 25-year-olds can't be up can't be bothered. Can't be bothered to vote. Not what I was going to say. Bothered. That's what I meant. Won't be bothered to vote. Pat says, I know you think this is unbelievable, but I have been in Glasgow today and it hasn't rained for 6 hours. What? Have I made a new world record, do you think, says Pat? Chris says, I was just wondering how long it will take for Sunak's campaign failures to be blamed on Meghan Markle. Yeah, thanks a lot, Meghan Markle. No! You see what you've done? There's a picture of Meghan Markle. Look at her, smiling, while Rishi suffers. Will texts, I'm glad I chose to be born to poor parents and avoided becoming snobbish. Yeah. What, like this person?
How do we allow this country to be properly run and raise the standard of living for all our voters? By taking it away from the unaccountable and the pious platitudes of pompous politicians which have been running this country for too long.
I cannot believe that he said that. Can he hear himself? Does he even know who he is? This country is sick and tired of pompous politicians. And he said that with a straight face. He had no idea that that's who he is. Has he even met himself? Deriding pompous politicians.
You're better informed than I am. I don't know anything.
I mean, that just does, takes the biscuit, doesn't it? West Wickham. Hello, Vic.
How are you?
Good, thanks.
Did you know that peers cannot vote?
What, Piers Moron?
No, peers in the House of Lords.
Oh, right.
I picked one up this evening. We was talking about politics, which I'm not really allowed to talk about in the cab, but I did. And she said, I can't vote. I said, why? She said, I can't tell you, and got out and went into an expensive restaurant. It's just interesting to find out why can't they vote. Can you imagine if there was a hung parliament and there was like 700 ladies and lords that couldn't vote? They could swing the election.
Yeah, I suppose they're in the wrong way. Yeah.
In the wrong way.
You said just now you can't talk about politics in your cab.
Yeah, but I'm not in my cab. I'm at home.
Oh, right. Okay. Good choice. Don't ever do that, Vic. That is the beauty of a cab, that little red button that silences the driver. That's the best invention in history.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
So, your views, what do you reckon, why do you reckon they can't vote?
It's an old law. Don't ask me. I mean, it's probably the same law that forces them to wear buckles on their shoes at the opening of Parliament. No idea. Thanks a lot, Vic. Gotta go. Now, if you missed any of today's super show, then you can catch up on Global Player. We put this and the Friday and the Saturday night shows up the internet as a podcast. We take the news and the ads out. It takes less time to listen to. You'll use less electricity and have more time to wonder at the state that we're in. Ask for it by name on an internet near you. It's exclusive to Global Player. It's called Nick Abbot The Whole Show Podcast. If you haven't got Global Player, it's free. Get it from your App Store or globalplayer.com. I'll be back tonight. Player.com. 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 I'll be back tonight.